Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shawcross. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. Mark, you had an exciting weekend. Tell us, what did you just accomplish?
I am 3 days out from being in the largest hole in the United States. So I did last weekend on Saturday and Sunday, I did the rim to rim to rim, which means I woke up on Saturday morning, walked from one side of the Grand Canyon to the other, then went to bed very short time because we had some issues the first day where it took us about 20 hours. Woke up the next morning and I went back the same way, and I did it in a little less of a time, but a total walk of about 52 miles. So, and lots of elevation. So, most people listen here in my training, I think the highest elevation I went for was from like 300 feet to 500 feet. And in a matter of a couple hours of time, I was going from 8,000 down to 3,000 or 3,000 up to 7,000 feet of elevation. And that elevation feelings, the head and the shortness of breath, like I felt it. It was pretty crazy. Having asthma my whole life kind of helped me because that kind of shortness of breath is something, it wasn't an uncomfortable or unfamiliar feeling for me. So it kind of worked. I had my puffer in my pocket and I was ready to go. But yeah, it was crazy. I haven't been outdoors for that many hours consecutively. And I don't know how long, if ever. So that was kind of the cool part.
That's awesome, man. Congrats on making it through.
Thank you.
What, like a year ago, did you think this was something you would ever do?
No, probably not. Probably not, just because I'm not, it's totally off the radar, I guess. I never would have thought I would be physically able to do it. That would probably be casting my doubts on just going through with it.
See, you get push yourself. If you're the same person you were last year, that's on you, right?
Yes. You should always look back at yourself, whether it be in a year or 5-year term. You should always be way better than that person, or way smarter, or have a different kind of outlook because you've experienced so much more. So anybody out there that is, you maybe been listening to us for a year, hopefully you've pulled the trigger by now. You've bought your first property, or you've bought your 3rd through 7th property, and you're making things happen. So maybe,
you're at least making changes, right? Like be process oriented. It doesn't always have to be result oriented.
Yes, exactly. So,
but there's the John C. Maxwell quote, right? Like, you'll never change your life unless you change what you do daily, or something like that.
Yep. We'll put that in the show notes, the exact quote.
Yeah, the right quote.
The right quote.
Cool. All right. What do we got for the housing provider tip of the week here?
All right. Housing provider tip of the week. We're coming up on fall. And, I said something, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, about lease renewals, or lease renewals or new leases right now. If you're getting a lease signed in September, October, November, around here, it's pretty traditional to do a year term. You're going to be ending next fall. You're going to be ending, if that tenant asks for a month extension, you're going to be ending in that holiday window of Thanksgiving to Christmas. If you are signing a lease renewal or a new lease starting September 1st, consider maybe doing a 14 to 18 month lease. This puts you in springtime 2 years later. At that point, it's either a better sale market that you might be trying to sell, or definitely a better leasing market. I know for us, this is not really a traditional market, but in your traditional markets, I call it the last 7-8 years, we're always getting a couple % higher rent even in those months. So anybody with a lease renewal coming up or a new tenant moving in, consider doing these a little longer of a lease. Now, don't do 2 years because that puts you right back into the same position, but maybe a 14 to 16 or 18 month lease will get you through into that hotter market 2 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And also from the tenant perspective, like when you get into those winter ones, no one really wants to move in the winter either, right? Like try to get it's better for everyone in the spring. That's why it's so busy in the spring. Yeah.
We have that lull between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's depressing. You can't pay people to come look at your properties for the most part. So, but yep.
Cool. Let's get moving. We got a lot to cover.
Yeah, we have a lot of information to talk about in today's episode. Today's guests, we have a partnership here, so we'll dive into some working with a partner, working with a significant other. We have so that's pretty exciting. We have 2 guests that have amazing backgrounds. So one of our guests today, Gregory 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, he's spent 20 years being a custom builder and licensed GC. He's one of the good ones, right? He's worked on hundreds of design and construction projects for other people. And in recent years, he started doing it with his partner and for himself and for his investment. So he's been able to take all these decades of experience and be able to do it for himself. Our second guest, Jennie Berger, who has an awesome past. She's worked on TV casting as a producer for shows on HGTV, Food Network, Travel Channel, ID Network, and then they've teamed up. Now, Jennie and Gregory, they've teamed up and they're doing amazing things on the Northwest side. And it's exciting. We're going to dig into it today. So to Gregory and Jennie, welcome both you guys. Is there anything more you want me to add to that or anything you want to add on to that intro?
Sounded good to me.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much for having us. This is so exciting.
Yeah, this is exciting. Jennie, I think our first interaction was you posted a bungalow you flipped in Portage Park on Bigger Pockets. And I was like, anyone who's flipping a bungalow on the Northwest side is A-okay in my book. We're off to a good start.
That's awesome. So we usually don't dive into the history of people on the show, but because they'll tie together in the end of talking about partnerships and stuff like that, kind of, I gave a little in the introduction, but if you guys could each kind of give, your 2-minute history of kind of how you guys came together, I think that would be interesting.
Okay, I'll start off. I started off as a carpenter in the union at 18 years old and worked building houses in the suburbs, some in the Chicago, but mostly suburbs. And then in my young 20s, I decided to branch off on my own and start up my own business, mainly framing houses, trimming houses, that kind of thing, the carpentry side. And then as I worked my way up to confidence and became a GC and started GC in my own projects. And the projects every year grew, and to the point where I was doing apartment buildings, restaurants, self-storage facilities, that kind of thing. And it got to the point where I was looking to I was working in the business and not working on the business. And I realized that, and that's where I wanted to make a transition into real estate and kind of work more on the business and the investor side, kind of plan the projects. And then I met Jennie, and I'll let her take her story from there.
I was living in East Tennessee at the time, and he happened to be traveling in Tennessee working on a big commercial project. And we met and we hit it off. And we decided about a month later to move to Chicago together and start real estate investing.
Oh, that's awesome. And so Greg, like working for doing all these other projects for other people, I imagine there had to be an element of I can do that, or why can't that be me? Like talk through kind of how watching all these other developers, working for all these other developers kind of helped you get to the place where you're at today.
Yeah, my dad kind of helped me with that too. He owned some apartment buildings, and he had a full-time job and business he ran. Then he had apartments on the side. So I got to see him on the investor side, but then also working for homeowners or investors. You were hands-on as a GC, and I had to be on the job site every day, all day. And I just knew I couldn't keep that up for the rest of my life. And I wanted to make that transition to where I could be, it's almost like a passive income for a GC where you're more the investor side. So it's, you have a crew working on the house that you don't have to babysit, you don't have to watch over, and somebody else is responsible for the everyday jobs going on. And I kind of want to transition to that as I got older.
Makes sense. So you guys moved to Chicago. Talk to us. How did you focus on the Northwest side? Because that seems to be where you guys are doing most of your damage. And then also, why flipping? Like, why did you pick that as like the major vehicle for your real estate investing?
Because we're nuts. That's why.
It was actually something.
Flipping's hard.
When we moved we came to Chicago, we actually I told her, I was like, we're not doing full gut rehabs on these houses. I'm not going to do that in Chicago. And then right out of the gate, we got 2 full gut rehabs.
So the little backstory is we were going to look for a condo to buy, renovate, and live in ourselves. So we hooked up with this broker that we found online with a listing. It was a downtown condo, so totally unrelated to houses, Northwest side and all that. But we stayed in touch with her and we said, look, this is our idea for the condo. We want to move in, blah, blah, blah. But we're also looking to get involved just in general in investing, maybe buy some properties, renovate, sell them. So she kind of just started scouring the MLS for us and looking for projects. And she came upon this one on the MLS that was in Norwood Park East, and it was a hoarder house. And she told us about it. And we got it. That was our first house that we got together. That's why we ended up on the northwest side, because that was the first house we got. We started working on it. We found another house 3 miles away, and we were like, well, I guess this is our area. We knew we wanted to stay hyper-focused, you know, in a sort of small vicinity. And then so that's why we kind of stuck up there. That's
awesome. So let's talk to, you know, born and raised on the northwest side. So I'm very excited for this episode. And Mark, I'm going to completely monopolize this thing. But
I was just thinking when she said East Norwood Park, I'm like, if I would love to have like a heart monitor hooked up to Tom to just kind of see it spike when she said those words. Like,
yeah, my first thought, you north or south of Raven. All right. So, all right. So for those of our listeners who don't know Norwood Park East, Jeff Park, give the 30-second rundown of what is that neighborhood like? What are some comparables? What, if I'm out of state and I don't know that area, just give us a little bit of that background.
Single family homes, multi-generational brick bungalows, over 100 years old. Not a huge amount of turnover. So, you know, kind of rare finds. What else?
I mean, it makes it tough to do comps is one of the problems we had with the area, but I mean, it also makes it a good place for families to move to, and good schools, good parks. You know, we really look for the good school, and we look for a lot of parks in the area, and that definitely has it. And a Starbucks and a Target. You got to have that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at let's look at an actual bungalow, right? Usually you just have that little, you know, attic on top. It's not a true second story. Are you guys going in there and dormering that, gutting it, popping the top, leaving it as is? Like, what's the typical play there?
It's a great question. And actually the answer to that is our process evolved from the beginning until now. The first house that we got, that hoarder house, we were going to do a small dormer. We were like, let's spend as little money as possible on this thing and just make it really nice. So we added a small dormer on the front and the back. And then after that, we said, why didn't we just do a full second story? So then I think, there is no typical is the short of the long answer. It kind of evolved. Now I would say we definitely look more, you know, we'll go in and do our repair costs, our estimates when we're, you know, considering buying a property, a bungalow specifically. And we'll say we're going to do a full second story, full gut rehab, full second story, most likely a basement dig down as well, because the ceilings tend to be very low. So that's kind of our typical plan now.
Yeah, with the first house, it was right when the lockdown was starting. So families, we thought, you know, nobody really wants the big bedrooms. And then the lockdown happened. It seemed like everybody wanted big bedrooms, big separated rooms. And we left about 200 square feet on the table with that house, leaving the roof the way it was. So on the third house, we decided, you know, we want to transition away from that, go full second story.
Yeah. Sorry, quick comment, Mark. You know, that's one thing that's evolved for us as well is, you know, a 4-bed, 2-bath, it can be completely different, right? It can be 3 like crappy little 9x9s on the main floor and one in the basement, or it can be, you know, the 3-2 up, and they're both listed as 4-2, but I mean, that's like $150K swing. That the actual layout, can I get all my kids upstairs? Like it's a huge difference when you're pulling comps.
Yeah. So that was gonna be my question there. And I think you answered it, but so leaving it like just the 2 small dormers front and back, like you did the first one, versus popping the top and doing a full, like you're saying that's about 150K additional on the ARV. Is that what you just said?
I'm just throwing out numbers because I
gotcha. How does that look for an ARV versus kind of on those 2 different scenarios? I'm asking from a pure, like, I'm curious standpoint.
Oh, so for us, well, I can say, I mean, the difference in price was probably about 150,000. Of course, the market's been a little inflated, right, over the last 8 to 10 months. So it's hard to know exact numbers like apples to apples, but the one that we put a dormer on, for instance, we sold that for 580. And then the one that we just closed on a few weeks ago with a full second story, we sold for 775. They're 3 miles apart. So they are different neighborhoods. And you know, Chicago's like block by block, things change. But still that was a major difference, you know, from the buyer's perspective.
Yeah, and I'd also add on, like, when the market's not as crazy as it is now, you know, those are the ones that sit for a while, when it's a funky layout, like anything will sell right now, and you'll just say, all right, well, it's just a judgment of what is it going to be. But those are the ones when you have that funky layout, like I've been there where you can be like, damn it, like we should have underpinned the basement, or we should have done this, and like, we tried to get cute and save 20K, and now I'm sitting on this thing.
Yep.
Talk about basements. I don't think we've ever talked about this in the show. It's like you guys said something about digging out the basement. Kind of explain what that is, or when you see a property, what you have to do to it, or kind of for a typical bungalow, what the type of cost. Give a little education on that for me as well too. So,
well, when you walk into these bungalows, you're going to run to the same layout in 90% of these houses, and then you'll go into the basement, and the basement height is different on every single house we go into. I don't know how they decide the basement height, but it's usually 6'6" to 7 foot. You'll get 7'1", 7'2" if you're lucky down there. And if it's under 7 foot, it's really, by the time you add heating ducts and that kind of thing, soffits in your basement, it takes away a lot of headroom, and it makes it hard to finish the basement and use it for living space. So we dig it down, and we'll try and do it without underpinning, which adds a lot of cost to it. So we'll dig a basement down, usually around 8 inches, and you're going to spend $15,000 to $25,000 depending on the size of the house. So, and that 8 inches of height is going to give you room to run your heating ducts, and it makes it feel much, much bigger down there.
Underpinning, define that for me, just for me or for anybody else that.
Underpinning is where you're going to go below the footings on the foundation. So you're going to dig it down. You have a footing that holds up your wall on your house, and the footing is going to be, maybe 8 inches thick. And if you go below that footing, you got to add concrete to the bottom of the footing, and you got to keep adding until you're below, as far down as you're going to dig. And that adds, sometimes it could be double the cost depending on how deep you're going to go with it.
Yeah. And Greg, how, if I'm looking at this the first time walking through the building, can I actually see that footing and know like, hey, I got 7'1" if I dig all the way down, or 7'6"? Like, when will you find out if you have to underpin?
You have to cut a hole in the concrete, and you have to dig down in a spot. That's the only way to really know. When we walk in these houses, because we specialize in one area, I know I'm going to get at least 8 inches on these houses. So, we've been lucky to get up to a foot without underpinning. So, but I usually go in thinking I'm going to get 8 inches of height if we dig it down.
It's huge.
Awesome. Cool. There's our basement knowledge. I don't know. We've covered that before. Nice work, guys. So let's continue on this northwest side. What else besides Norwood? Like, where else have some of your recent projects been?
Well, we love North Mayfair, which is like the northern part of Albany Park, right near 𝗥𝗲𝗃𝗁𝗏 Park. It's like this little gem area where, I don't know, people are kind of particular there. Let's put it in those terms. But it's the same kind of house. It's the bungalow or raised ranches, but that's a really good area. So we love North Mayfair. We're in East Albany Park / Ravenswood Manor now, and also going into South Irving Park. So technically Kilbourne Park, which I think is very up and coming. We're starting new construction there shortly. So those are kind of our areas.
Cool. So I want to dive into those, but you said new construction. So real quick, talk to us. How can you make new construction numbers work in these areas? And this is personally, I've seen lots, but my new construction costs are high enough to where the ARV is not going to justify it, if that makes sense. So let's talk through this new construction project that you guys have going on. Can you mind sharing numbers with the listeners? What did you get the lot for, or the building you had to tear down? Like, let's walk through this pretty tactically.
Sure. We can go with the new construction we have going on now, which was, I feel like the material prices were worse then, because now they're starting to come down at least. So the one we have going on now, it's a 30, what's the size of that one?
30 by 142 lot.
How many square feet, the house?
30.
It's a big lot.
3,600 square feet.
3,600 square foot house. We got it for $130 a square foot, complete package. But the game plan we use on these projects is we try and get 2 houses for a GC. So if they have 2 houses, you're going to have a lot more room to work with them on the price. And we saved quite a bit of money by doing that. And there are 2 houses right next to each other. We bought a house with an empty lot. So we remodeled the house and then built a new construction right next to it.
Got it. And the existing house was not overlapping on both pins, right? It was just on one line.
Separated pins already. Yep.
Yep. No, that's awesome. So you remodel the house. Can you walk through some of the numbers there, if you don't mind? Like, just talk tactically, what did you cost to rehab that house? Was that profitable, or was that just kind of break even to make the bigger new construction work? Like, real curious to see how this all played out.
We never go to break even. We're always trying to make money on every deal. So we structured it so we had to pay what to pay for the lot, the value of the lot. We had to figure out, what we were going to associate the price with when we bought the house. So the house, the numbers probably better than I do. Why don't you go ahead?
The house and the vacant lot together it was $490. So we divided that up to be what?
$215,000 for the lot, and the rest went towards the house. And we did that kind of for the profit, so we could get a profit on the remodel.
Got it.
Then the remodel costs, you have that too, right?
Yeah. So the remodel costs, the budget we have was $300,000.
Yeah.
For the remodel, and the new build is $440
somewhere. Yeah.
Ish.
Okay. And are these still going on then? Or are you guys in the heat of it right now?
We are just about done with the remodel. The new construction just got drywall completed today.
That's awesome. Keep plowing ahead there. 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it, but in the ideal world, it'd be cool somehow if if there's some holdback in this scenario where like the new construction went first to give you that comp. Right? Like steal that and show that off when you go to sell that remodel.
Well, the best thing about this market is there's comps, popping up every day. There's so many houses selling right now in that area. So when we first started these houses, it was tough to find comps, but we're actually, seeing some good comps come up on the MLS now.
Will you try to pre-sell it, or will you guys wait till it's 100%? Well, give us kind of an idea of at what point will you go on the market or pre-market, or however you might be listing it?
They're actually both on the PLN. Okay. And we did that just to kind of do a test run. We had some interest in the rehab. We haven't had much interest in the new construction. It is July, so I will just kind of say, it's a slower time. But honestly, my true gut feeling is that these houses are not going to sell until they're on the market. We did try to list a house before on the PLN, and it didn't. It also, when it went on the market is when it really, I just find that a lot of people, unless you have a house that you built before that's virtually identical and you can show images and people can see those pictures, it's very hard for a buyer to walk into an unfinished house and imagine what this is going to look like, even with fixtures on paper and paint colors and stuff like that.
Agree 100%. We just went through that same process, and it's hard. It's hard on everybody. It's hard on their agent, on them, like just to get that visualization across. Taking a step back for our listeners who don't understand, what is the PLN?
The private listing network. So I'm not a real estate broker, so I don't know that I know the technical explanation, but it's basically, it doesn't syndicate to websites like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com. It's not as public, if you will. If you're a licensed real estate agent, you have access to the private listing network, and then you can, I guess, share with your clients. So it's just a more private type of listing.
I'll define it more of a coming soon, in your guys' situation where it's like, listen, we got something coming up. We want to make sure people are aware of it, or, maybe an estate sale where it's like, we got to trash this entire place out and make sure legally we can sell this house, but it's coming soon type. And especially I've seen the private network's been around for, I think 8-9 years now, but I think it's only really been catching on steam as we've had a hotter market these last few years.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why we don't like the PLN is just because it takes me back to my days of working for homeowners. They'll come in and they'll want to change things. They'll want to add things.
Yep.
We'll give you this price if you add this. And we're not trying to do that. We're trying to bring a product to the market and sell it to somebody that really loves it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also like bigger plans change the permits, right? Like it can be a whole just chicken and egg thing.
Yep.
So real quick, let's talk a little bit about Greg. You have a lot of experience here. Some of our listeners probably have never done an extensive rehab. So let's say they're hiring a general contractor like yourself. Can you talk through just, they get their architectural drawings, but can you talk through like, where are the inspection points? So like when, you have your roughs, the city needs to sign off on, what are some gotchas? I know each inspector is a little different, but can you provide a little bit of a guideline there for someone who's never gone through the process?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'm still learning being in Chicago now, and I came from the suburbs, you know, the easy permit is really not so easy. So don't fall for the name on that. So there's no such thing as an easy permit in Chicago. The inspection points are really, your GC should have this for you, but it's good to know this up front, you know, find out from him on a schedule. He should have every inspection for you, just so you know, and you could even be there and find out, you know, you can find out what kind of job he's doing. Any issues he's having as a homeowner. You know, if you've hired somebody, you should be checking in on them to make sure that the project's going okay. But you'll have an inspection. If it's a remodel, sometimes they'll want to do a framing inspection depending on what you change. And then you'll do a plumbing, electrical, HVAC. All those will get inspected before you do your drywall. In the city, I've heard you do insulation inspections and I've heard you don't do insulation inspections. So I'm still not clear on that, but we usually call for one and we'll get an insulation inspection. Just to make sure we don't run any issues. And then they'll do an inspection on the end, pretty much a final inspection. They'll walk through the plumber, heating, electrical, everybody's got to get it signed off on the final inspection to make sure it's built per plan and up to code.
Awesome. What are some things that could cause you to partially pass or partially fail? Like what are some obvious ones that, like a red flag almost, if I'm an investor and my GC says, oh, we failed because of X.
The mood of the inspector that day.
Yeah. Is your inspection Friday at 3 or Monday at 9?
That's when you have an insulation inspection or not, is depending on how the inspector feels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've had one GC that was told he was supposed to get one, another GC that was told by the city he didn't need one. So I'm still trying to clarify if we need one or not.
Like some gotcha points.
The gotcha points, I would say, you know, just really built per plan. Because sometimes they won't say anything if you don't build it per plan, but sometimes they catch you and you didn't go by the plan and you change some things here and there. It could really come back to bite you. You rip things out and you got to change things then.
Yeah, that's huge. That's
the biggest one probably.
Cool. All right. So, hey, let's jump back into areas. So you guys mentioned 𝗏𝗏𝗃 Park, which I love because I think up until now, I'm the only person who uses that phrase because it's not an official neighborhood. It's not on the MLS. But to me, it's basically Addison to Belmont, Cicero, and then Milwaukee running on that angle there. And right now we have 3 different projects in that little, call it not triangle, but whatever that shape is, with Milwaukee making it angled, not a square. Like, thank you, Mark. That could have been our Chicago fact at the end. Talk to us a little about why do you guys love that area? Talk for someone who's never been in that area. Give us the 30-second rundown. You know, what is the housing stock like? What are ARVs like? What's a good purchase point for you? Just provide some detail and we can go from there.
You know, it's a recent purchase, but when we drove through there, I saw a few vacant lots, not a ton. And most of the houses are in decent shape to good shape. The park is literally up the block, and it's an absolutely beautiful park with an organic greenhouse and new fields that they just like redid. The demographic is it's multicultural there. It's very ethnic, which I love. The cars are a mixture. And the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is because when I drive through a neighborhood, I look at all of these things in order to tell me, you know, what is this neighborhood? Is it up and coming? Is it too far from being gentrified? Is it already peaked? And we look for areas that are kind of mixed, you know, where you do have some nice cars and some you look at and you're like, that's kind of banged up. But with the ARVs, there was a house, I think just across the street, that had sold for almost $700,000. So the majority of the homes in the neighborhood are in like the 2s, low 3s, but you have a house that was fully renovated and sold for almost $700,000 right near a park, close to Belmont, where they have the amazing townhome complex, the Avalon, I think it's called. Those are selling in the $600,000 and $700,000. So to me, these are all indicators of an area that's just not hit its peak yet, but it's on its way. And so that was something that I just fell in love with.
Yeah, I'm +1 on everything you just said there. One other thing I'll comment on is you'll pull comps from like West Avondale, like going towards the highway, going east of Pulaski. Like I know I just had a 2-unit and we blew away our ARV and they pulled all the comps going east there, considered the same neighborhood. And I was like, oh, it's starting to get lumped in. It keeps coming west, It's starting to get lumped in there. That was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that, South Irving Park. You could kind of consider this area South Irving Park. When we did our ARV for this house, we had it set at $700,000. We're getting a construction loan from a local bank. They did their own appraisal. Their as-is numbers came in almost $20,000 higher than what we paid, and their ARV after everything is built came in at $740,000. So we're ecstatic.
Good feeling.
Yeah, making money. We haven't even started yet.
Yeah.
Well, on the northwest side here, and we're talking about some things that are benefiting the ARV. Are there any things that people need to watch out for when planning for a project as far as ARV goes, of whether it be a certain type of block, a certain type of location relative to a busier street, or anything that they really have to look out for when they're trying to prepare with an ARV?
Yeah, we really watch for, stores in the area, nice new homes popping up, but also access to the home. Is the backyard and the alley blocked by anything? Is it backed up to a commercial property? We really we want a single family home where they have a yard and some privacy as much as possible, but you're still in the city. So that's a couple of things we look for.
And I do think there's other things. The train, for instance, is one big thing. People want to be near the train, but maybe they don't necessarily want to be right on top of it. However, in Chicago, more people than not don't seem to mind if they are right near the train. It's just kind of like comes with, living in Chicago. But that's something that we definitely considered with the properties we have in East Albany Park, because they're on the train, the Brown line. But that's definitely something I would look out for as an investor. As well as what Greg said.
Cool. So you guys have done a good amount of rehabs in these areas. If I'm looking to do my first rehab here, what are some things that are necessities for that end buyer? Like, do you need a 2-bed, 2-bath up, or a 3-2 up? Like you mentioned some like digging down the basement, but talk to us a little about what are some buyer expectations at that $700K price point? What materials, just what are some things that you have to have that you can't skimp out on?
You want to go?
Well, with this market, it's really, as long as it's a house and it's for sale, that's really all you need. So.
That's a good question. Any other year, I guess.
Yeah. No, and
I don't want you guys to sell yourself short, because and Jenny, you've posted some of your rehabs. They're awesome. They're beautiful. Like, you guys do a really, really nice job. I don't want someone to think, I can just come in here and do lipstick and get $700K. Like, you guys make your rehabs look very, very nice. And I want to get that point across of, what are some of those things that you're doing to push that number?
Well, we try and provide, now we've learned with, the lockdown, like I said, everybody wants the bigger bedrooms. They want a little privacy. We try and give as much square footage as possible in these houses. You maximize, maybe turn a sunroom into living space, and then you got some free square footage right there. That was one trick we've been adding in now. And then what I like to do is add in a custom feature, like on our house on Keeler we just sold. We threw in a custom fireplace with some tile that's just really not in our budget, but it made the house feel special. It looked nice, and it's a selling feature for the people walking through. And then I really think just the finishes, we don't go super high end, but you want to make them nice enough to where people can tell it's a good quality product that you're selling.
Yeah. Well, I would also add, for that price range, people are expecting a washer and dryer. The first couple houses we sold, we tried to not put a washer and dryer in the house. And these people were like, well, we'll take the house if you put a washer and dryer in it. So now we just get the washer and dryer. They expect that. Another thing that I don't know if this was outwardly expressed, but upstairs laundry rooms are huge. And it's a huge convenience for the buyer. And at that price point, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't have an upstairs laundry room or option where the majority of the bedrooms are. And of course, like a home office workspace, an extra room for that is very important.
I think the layout of the houses, when we buy the bungalows, it's a box. You can only do so many things with the layout. So you really got to nail your layout on these houses and try and maximize every room that you can and get creative with it.
Awesome.
That is some awesome feedback. That's great feedback. Hey, Tom, anything more on the neighborhoods? I know this is your episode.
I don't want to bore our listeners, but we can talk about gompers and all this other fun stuff. But no, take my kids sledding there.
All right, cool. Well, so you guys invested in where you're at today. And I'm curious to hear you guys joined Fortune Builders some years back, which is a large investment. I mean, you hear pros and cons of that. You hear some people totally against it. You hear people say it's changed your life. I'd love to hear kind of how you guys came to the decision that you wanted to make that investment, and then kind of hear some of the pros and cons of where you're at today with it.
Well, we actually had a pretty interesting start. I mean, being a GC, you think I would just be able to jump into the real estate investing and feel confident, but I really wasn't that way because I didn't know the numbers on the sales side, the buying side, the taxes you were going to pay, and then just, everything that came along with it. I knew how to remodel a house or build a house, but after that, I didn't know what happened. So when we joined, actually I was sitting here during lockdown, nothing else to do, scrolling through social media, and a free class popped up, a one-day class for Fortune Builders. And we decided to sign up for it. We went to the class and gained some spreadsheets from there that actually gave us the breakdown and told us what the taxes would cost, what our profit would be if we pay, if our ARV's this, our rehab's this much, how much profit are we going to make? And it kind of put it on paper for us that we knew we could do this. And so we went out and bought 2 houses after that free one-day seminar. And then we made it to our full weekend training. And they said, I hope nobody went out and bought houses before this training after the free one-day seminar. so it was a little scary at first, but we ended up doing pretty good on those first 2. And I mean, I feel like Fortune Builders just gave us confidence, and also coaches that if we have any questions, we just pick up a phone, call the coach, or the coach calls us, we set up a meeting, and they answer any questions we have. So it's been great.
I imagine one of the benefits is you're exposed to some of their network. What kind of network have you been able to add to your network in being part of a group like that?
Yeah. Well, they have business accountability coaches. They have just real estate mentors. All of these people that we've been training with or training under, I think private money lenders, wholesalers, there's all different types of investors get involved with Fortune Builders, not just people like, who want to do gut rehabs or new construction. So we've been able to access these people much easier than having to just go out and solicit or go to a networking event and happen to run into someone who does blank and I'm looking for this. So the gamut really of all facets of investing. We've had people connect us to local banks that we might have not otherwise looked into.
Another way that they work is they pool their money and they'll buy commercial properties or apartment buildings, and only Fortune Builder members will have access to these investments.
Oh, large commercial syndication deals. Yeah.
Cool. So kind of along those lines, you guys have all your exterior partners, but let's talk about just the 2 of you, right? And I know from experience, I'm very fortunate, Chris and I are close, and because flipping is very hard. There's a lot of stressful moments, and that bond makes it much easier to figure out, not get emotional, and figure out an answer. So talk to us a little bit about that, because I feel that's probably one of the most overlooked and one of the most challenging parts of the business is you feel you're on an island, you're only on this island with one other person, and things are going to go bad every single day. You are going to get a phone call or text or something that pisses you off, and then having to deal with that together is talk to our listeners about that who are thinking about partnering with someone that they may or may not already have experience with.
Every day, you get that text or that phone call. It feels
so like that. It does feel like that. I mean, and that's where being a general contractor, I had to deal with it during the day, and then I would come home and I dealt with it, too. And having a partner, I can deal with it during the day, and Jenny's handling things in the office at home, and dealing with that. So it takes a lot off of my shoulders. I can focus on one part of the business and know that I'll have somebody there to help me with the other part. And it really helps out a lot. And I don't know how you feel about your partner, but.
Yeah, no, I think the key is to split responsibilities. I mean, in the beginning, we were both doing everything. I mean, we would go to the rehabs, every day together. And we finally got to a point where we realized, and this was actually through our business coach, she said, you have to split your roles. Jenny, what is it that you love and what are you really good at? Those are your things.
Greg, what is it that you really love and what are you really good at? Those are your things. And so we split these responsibilities, and I 100% trust him in the things that he does. So even though I may text questions, or we may have, we have our meetings and we go back and forth on things and we always brainstorm, and overall, I trust his decisions there. So I don't worry about it. And he trusts my decisions on the things that I take care of. So he doesn't really worry about it. That alleviates a lot of stress from not only the business partnership, but the relationship.
Love that answer.
Yeah, partners in general. You said a lot of people going alone. I think just having a partner in general, it lowers your risk, especially when you have the yin and yang as far as strengths and weaknesses. I think that's huge. I mean, look at even you and me, Tom, our partnership here. Like I let, people were talking about podcasts this weekend. I said, man, get a partner. It's great having a partner because you can share the workload and then you get all the success together. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
No witty comment? I thought I'd get a witty comment there.
No, I was thinking about it. I didn't have anything good to say.
All right, you'll think of it later. You're too late. Good.
I'll text you later. Our listeners won't get it.
All right, awesome. Great information so far. All right, cool. Tom, anything else, or we wrap?
No, this has been packed a ton of different ways. I'm sorry I bounced around everywhere, but it was just so much to cover, and glad we're getting through all of it in a decent amount of time here. Yeah,
for sure. So you guys have been successful so we're moving to the wrap up. You guys have been successful in what you've been doing. What's been your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while many people wish they could have done as many deals as you've done successfully so far?
I think there's two answers to that. One is access to capital, finding the capital, and also having someone like Greg. And even the capital is irrelevant. I mean, because anybody can find money, but having a qualified general contractor and someone who really knows what they're doing in this city especially is huge. It is the key. Doing work that we're doing, the types of projects that we're doing. So I say Greg is our competitive advantage.
Yeah, I think it's just we're knowing the numbers.
What?
Greg agrees.
I'm speechless. She got me on them. I would say just, knowing your numbers when you go into these rehabs, that's really where it can bite you. And sticking to your ARV and your remodeling budget. And, you got to stick to those numbers. And I feel like my background has helped us to knowing what we're going to spend on each rehab. And that's huge.
Yeah, I think we've never really said that before, but Tom, you have a Chris, Jenny, you got a Greg. I have a Brian. Brian got me through 500 rehabs. Like Brian always says, everyone needs a Brian. So I think everyone needs a Greg today. But I think that takes so much pressure off. Tom, can you imagine having to find a different Chris every project, or going through a year with Chris and then let him let you down? You have to go find a new Chris. Like it just takes having that as a partner, I think, is a huge advantage.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And one more comment on the general contractor. Greg, how easy is it to get a GC license in Chicago?
It's pretty easy. You just have to have insurance and a name, that's about it. So, and we hired GCs more like project managers with us, and I'll oversee them. But I mean, I'm just amazed by what you can run into in the city. So you really got to be careful on who you hire and for what project.
Yeah, the only caveat, unpaid parking tickets too. They get you. That's their one.
Yeah, you have to pay your parking tickets and you can be a GC.
I've seen a lot of guys that are like, holy cow, I never thought these $7,000 in parking tickets would come back and get me. I'm like, man.
But the point of that is it's very easy to become a licensed general contractor. That's not that should not be your qualification for, I found my partner here.
Yeah.
Very true.
Cool. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property in the lovely northwest side of Chicago?
Oh God, there's so many things. I wrote down so many answers.
I would have to say, find a realtor that really knows the area and then, has a lot of connections. That's been huge for us. Is we kind of structure our deals where if a realtor brings us a house, she'll get it on the buy and then we rehab it. She gets it on the sell or he, so they get a double commission. And that's really been a benefit for us.
Awesome.
Jenny, no answer on that, Jenny?
I mean, I can go in a different direction and I can say that I think it's important as you're starting your journey to praise all of the wins.
I think it's really hard to notice and to be grateful when like something, quote unquote, let's say simple, happens. You know, if you go to a networking event, you haven't bought a property yet, you're not an investor, quote unquote, that's a win. You know, you read a couple of books and you're starting your journey, that's a win. And I just think if you start with that mindset, and as you go through your journey, you will have more gratitude and appreciation for every step along the way of your success. So I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, because going back to that text or that call you get on a daily basis, those beat you down and overshadow the wins. Even though the win may even be bigger, you're still always focused on negative. And even for us in growing a business at GC, the amount of wins we have on an annual basis are huge, but we're sucked into the weeds of the fire that happened down the street and figure out how we got to handle that. So I think every entrepreneur is always trying to think huge, and when they're not, until they think they're huge, which they never ever are happy, it seems like, they're always going to let that overshadow. So learn how to celebrate the wins. I like that. All right, guys, I can imagine you guys talk about real estate 24/7, but you got to do something other than real estate. What do you do for fun?
I love to play beach volleyball and love traveling and Broadway musicals. And I do love to cook. I'm a big plant-based chef type person. So I like to create new plant-based dishes.
Yeah, and that's another thing we do together, is adds to the mix. We play sand volleyball doubles together. So, you know, we get to argue with during work and in the sand. So makes it fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
What is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners?
I actually have 3 book recommendations.
Bring them.
3 that really inspired me and just kind of helped revolutionize my outlook. Never Split the Difference.
Chris Voss.
Chris Voss. Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. And Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, it's a very slow moving book, but nonviolent communication. Our business is a people business, and it's a business of communicating with people and understanding what people's needs are. And that book, Nonviolent Communication, gets to the root of understanding people's needs, listening to people's needs. And if you can master that, I mean, you know, the rest is just a breeze.
My wife might encourage that one too, so I'm going to have to read that.
Yeah, I would have to go with the classic Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, that kind of just gets you thinking creatively and outside the box. And I think that kind of just propelled me into starting up a business and just thinking you can do it and branch out on your own. So, and then also how to manage money. So, I mean, that's kind of I have my kids reading it, you know, just read it now when you're young and then read it again, you get older, and hopefully it starts making more and more sense as you get older.
Nice. How old are your kids? Just curious, because
I have a son that's in college. He's a senior. He's got a quarterback for Dartmouth. So watch him on ESPN this year. He'll be playing on TV.
Nice.
Oh, no.
I have a son that's coming to college 2 blocks away from where we live right now at Roosevelt to play basketball. He's graduated. And then a daughter that's 12, and she's back in the suburbs, in DeKalb still.
All right, good. Because I was trying to get my daughter, who's 10, to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and she was not about it. And my wife was like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, my 18-year-old son's still like, I think he made it through 10 pages, and I'll get to it. I'm working on him still.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Good. I'm not behind that. I thought I was falling behind.
No.
All right. Awesome. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network that you would highly recommend to other investors on the Northwest side.
Our attorney, Justin Strain. He's our real estate attorney, and he's a godsend. Definitely highly recommend. An attorney is another key to have somebody that's really going to bat for you and on your side when it comes to buying and selling the real estate.
Awesome.
I agree on that one. He's been huge. He's been very helpful in every closing. You know, it's important to have somebody on your side when it comes to the closings on these houses.
Greg, Jenny, thank you so much. You guys have provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? And is there any way they can provide value to you?
We're on Instagram at Property People LLC. That's a great way to stay connected to us. We post lots of photos and videos. Email is info@propertypeoplellc.com.
also on Facebook. And as far as value, we're really looking to create more partnerships. And I think this is huge for newer investors, to look for partnerships, because you may not have the money or the experience to do something yourself, but you really want to get started, and working with someone who's more seasoned could be a great idea. And we are looking to work potentially with newer investors, especially people who are interested in new construction. So if you're looking to get into new construction, but you're kind of scared, there's a lot of unknowns, but you have deals, or you have lots, or you have something to bring to the table, we can consider partnering up. Yeah. I
mean, I think we want to transition into multifamily. So we'd be willing to partner with somebody that maybe a multifamily that needs rehab or something like that. And we're open to working with our people on it.
All right. Be careful. You're going to get calls.
People do listen to this.
Yep.
What?
So, all right, guys. Great episode. Really enjoyed it. We talked about bungalows at the beginning. So Mark, you have a bungalow question here. So Portage Park, which has a ton of them. Most of them built between 1950 and 1930. Portage Park has this many historic bungalows. It'll be multiple choice. And keep in mind, there's not how many bungalows. It's historic. Ready? And it's either A, 22, B, 85, C, 189, or D, 350.
They have the second most bungalows, right? In community wise, I think it's 85, right?
I don't know the answer to your question. I'm supposed to be the one asking questions. How many historic ones do we got?
I'm saying 85.
Going with 85. Greg and Jenny, you guys want to throw a number out there?
I would have said 85 too. I go with B.
I'm going to go with C.
See, the GC knows it. 189.
Yeah, there we go.
I think most of the, and I wanted to pull it up since we started talking about North Mayfair, but I know they have that, like when you go down Trip and like those places down Foster, they're going northbound. They have a ton of those. They have the little signs off for those historic ones. They got a ton too.
Oh, all right.
We'll do some research.
We try not to get involved in the historic. It's a whole other entity and ball game. So.
Yeah, that'll be my housing provider tip next week. We're running into some historical issues right now on the management side. So, but all right, Greg, Jenny, that was an awesome show. Listeners, thank you very much. Before you hang up on here, leave us a 5-star review. Reach out anytime if you have a question or if you have an idea for a show or a potential guest. We're always interested in meeting new people that could add value to all of you. And people are getting outside again. So go on straightupchicagoinvestor.com and pull up the Chicago real estate investor meetups. We have a list of, I think, what we think is most of them on there. Majority. So I think there's about 15 and 15 of them total on there. I think 11 of them are meeting in person now. So it feels good to get back out there. We got the opportunity to do that last week. It was awesome. So thank you everyone for listening. Again, thank you, Greg and Jenny. Thank you, Tom, as always. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks all.